They gave us some serious chairs here.
Nice.
What's going on, Salaam?
Another day,
Another day. Welcome
another
home.
experience.
Welcome home. Um, let's start right up. You know, you have a real interesting history of being in a musical family, um, and then being exposed very early to production. Can you talk a little bit just about your beginnings as a producer?
My presence as a producer. I mean, I guess it started to even get to a producer term, maybe in my teen years. But I mean, playing music since I was young. I played drums. Excuse me, about 3, 4 years old. I could really play a trap drum set. I haven't said that in a while. A trap drum set. I could actually play like
You old
drums.
school. You old school.
Exactly. So I actually could play that, and then my dad and all his brothers were musicians, and my mother's brothers were musicians. So I grew up around my uncles all playing, and I was able to keep up with them on the drums. Disco was easier, but still,
Four on the floor.
totally.
Okay. And so, what? And you also had a mentor, and really the beginnings of hip hop. Can you? I mean, you know better than I because I didn't grow up in New York. But tell me a little bit about your mentor and how you started getting involved.
Which
with
one are you referring to? Because it
You
kind of
no, you
spans.
tell me the history. So
I mean, well, I guess when it gets to hip hop, basically my dad. I mean, I guess my dad is really my blueprint on many levels because he's from Trinidad, but then he came to America and then he did Jazzmobile at Queens College. So then he was around the Chick Coreas and the Jamaica Boys, Marcus Millers, all those type of people. And then he did the disco era, played with Gloria Gaynor, Tana Gardner, all these different people, arranged records. Then when it got to the hip hop generation, he put together the contest that found the Fat Boys, produced Curtis Blow, etc. Then did promotions at a label to managing people to etc. And kind of went through all the genres that really I work in. Then worked with Belafonte for years. So from Caribbean music all the way back to hip hop to current music, creative, totally back to business. My father's really, I guess, my mentor on that level because the blueprint of what he laid out is still what I'm following up to this day.
so
And how that replaced the hip hop is that he also started in hip hop, and then he was managing Chuck Chill Out, and then I became the hip
right.
hop kid. But I was also his inspiration into hip hop because he was watching what I was listening to in the '80s.
And so, tell me about working with Chuck Chill Out. As an intro to like the studio outside of your dad, or was that with him?
Not so much. I mean, I'd already had more studio experience, but Chuck was my introduction into the scene. I was already producing records and had my first programmable keyboard drum
Which
machine
which
thing.
one?
Yamaha Porta Sound. I got that in '83. So yeah, that was like when I was about 11 years old. I had that. And then I had a TR-707, DX21, that turned into S950, into Alesis, and by '89, when I got out of high school, I was already producing records that sounded like I'd already had records on the radio, really, that was there. But then that was like, okay, this is my other job outside of going to college. And then my dad was managing Chuck Chill Out, so Chuck Chill Out was my person that myself and Funk Master Flex ran around with. That got me into the scene. I was in the clubs, I was in everywhere that he was at, and I knew more people from that point rather than just being in the studio sense.
So that leads us to a point, a very important point to a producer's career, and yours particularly, um, when we talk about a sustainable income. And so I'm going to switch right now, and can we run the first song that's on the list, and you guys see if you know this one. I know Salam's told me stories about what this particular record did for him, but go ahead and spin it, please. Um, and that's actually the Fugees' second record. Did you work on the first record also?
Yeah, that was the first single off the score, which is the second album.
Right.
I'd already done 2 records for them before that, which were remixes of Nappy Heads, Mona Lisa, and Vocab. And then this is a song that we did in the session between. They didn't really even have a budget for their second album, or a deal for their second album yet. And they did this song, and it actually got it further. I'm listening to it now, like that's the actual master tape or something, because it sounds very 1990 something. But yeah, that actually became the record that I guess in a commerce type of way. I've already had that same year. I had I Need Kamoza, Here Comes the Hot Stepper be an international big record after being something that was more made for the clubs in my mind, but it was a different thing. But the success of the Fugees was two sided. It was one as far as what the music did in the song, but it was really about what artist development took place between my production of their records that now led that artist, the three artists within that group to now become their own producers and then go forward and, really iconize their own careers and also inspire many people after that.
So the artist development that you're talking about with Praz and Wyclef and Lauren is you helped them a lot at development as artists doing the record, or was it?
Oh, definitely.
part
I
of the whole
mean,
process?
well, my process is really just they were they had records, they had talent. In our first session, Wyclef sang half of what he put on the carnival, like at that moment. But it was just really teaching them how to take what talent they had and kind of crop the picture down so that now this song is doing what you needed to do to get to this audience. And after that, their shows became really focused on, well, this is what we do right now to get the audience. Well, this is what we do right now. So it kind of gave them a focus by having a couple of what were perceived as hit records and then having a focus on how to complete it to really base their whole energy around. Because they had talent. They just didn't know how to really package it in order to turn it over.
So, and you now you're a real record man. You work for Sony. Congratulations, you signed Lauryn Hill last year or this year.
Yeah, Doug Morris signed her. I watched.
Okay, but I know you
Yeah,
don't even try. You had a lot to do with.
He did a deal
Lauryn.
with her.
He did the deal.
She's her own boss. There's no, so I wouldn't even.
Y'all have a relationship.
Exactly.
That goes way back.
I stand around. Exactly.
So a lot of people want to sign Lauryn Hill, I'm sure. So I'm claiming it for you. I'm sure Salaam made it happen at the end of the day. But when you first experienced her and all of them, I mean, as a record man now, looking back, would you have the same reaction? What, did sparks go off in your head about how talented they were, or was it any different than any other artists you were working with at that time?
I mean, for me, it's always a thing where I say there's no shortage of talent. There's no shortage of talented people. There's a shortage of talented executives that know how to let talented people be what they are and then find ways to market and grow it. So when I guess my experience, because I can't even say it was the first day when I worked with them, but seeing what that became allowed me to really also see if we kept certain things going and really focused our energy. And then also the artist really focuses whatever their true talent is. Some people spend a lot of time trying to be something that they're not. And sometimes people, skip over. Many artists, it's a daily conversation of mine. They want to skip over their hit record because it's not me. All right. Like whatever it may be. Or they grow faster. I know I personally grow faster than the audience. Like I'm usually 2 or 3 years ahead of what people might be up to now. But I'm learning to slow down just enough to let them catch up. So I think in that case, with the Fugees, I saw the potential, but once again, I saw the potential realized. So it gave me a roadmap on how to realize that potential in each artist.
I think it's a really important, statement that you make about artists. Just on the whole journey, not everybody is meant to be a superstar. Not everybody's going to have a hit record. But sometimes, in my experience, artists get caught up in what they think it is to be a star.
I think success is really when you're able to just be yourself, and it works. It's the balance of being your own artist and you're an artist, and then I have a career that's been blessed with the balance of art and commerce. So I've been able to, my most commercial wins have also been artistic at the time when they came out, and not really the typical space. So I think really when you're a true artist, you can get up today and say, hey, there's something I have in my mind. It is what it is. Most, art, if we're talking about paintings and things, isn't appreciated while the artist is standing there. It's usually way after. So someone has to be a leader and a visionary for themselves before they can be for everyone else.
That's so important. Say it again. Be you.
Totally be yourself. And then your ideas and everything that's going on around you. And you still have to work at it, I was up at 4:30 this morning making sure I got here on time. So it's the same difference.
Artists have a problem with that 4:30 call sometimes.
Totally.
Man, that's beautiful. And I mean, it's important coming from you because, you know, you're in this new role as a record executive.
But the thing is, my new role for me is not really a new role because what I've been doing for many years. There was never an A&R person that came to the studio with the Fugees. There was never an A&R person that came with Amy Winehouse. I've always been doing what I'm doing, and I have a business sense. It's just more or less I'm in a space now where I'm doing it for a company in the same space rather than just for myself. So it's kind of like an extension of what I've always done for me.
Well, I think we, the industry, are lucky to have you sit in that seat. You know, for those artistic reasons, you know, um, I just look forward to what you're going to do. Um, so as being in that position, you know, you're still a producer. You're still producing. Are you a hip hop producer? Do you get that label? Are you an R&B producer? What are you?
Well, I've had to explain this a couple times recently in a way where I say that I'm still of the hip hop generation. And the reality is that the hip hop generation, just like the generation now, basically, you know, what is my real influence? Like I grew up in the '80s. It was Run DMC. Okay, it got to the '90s. We were in Jazz Center. I knew more jazz records by title, label, name than my dad did, and he was around then. It keeps going. Like as being a native New Yorker, you know, when I do a big band record, I'm still being Sinatra. It's all part of who I am because the hip hop generation took things from whatever different backgrounds, whether it was classical, jazz, country, and they still brought it back to what their story was at the time. So Nice and Smooth sampling Tracy Chapman, you know, it doesn't make a difference where it came from. It's about where I put it. It's not where you're from, it's where you're at. So I think that as me being a hip hop producer, no. I can produce hip hop, but I think being part of the hip hop generation, you kind of take things because most people now, if you look in their phones at what music they have, they'll have songs from all over the world, different places, different genres. We're not in the space that it has to be one thing or another. If you want to wear a flag, well, go right ahead, but that's not the norm at this moment.
You think that can work for artistry also? I mean, you know, like with radio formats changing from when we were kids, where you could hear everything on the radio. Now, almost all radio is formatted in a way.
I don't
So,
think the majority of people get their music from the radio at this point. I think a lot of the majority of progressive people, when it's on the radio, it's where things are over the top. You know, things incubate and grow in small rooms in small towns, and you know, online in different places. Like people curate their audiences way before anybody even knows of a radio song. I think that's just a commercial format. Once again, that's like counting money before you make art. How much money am I going to make for it? Then I'll make it. Like that's backwards. At the end of the day, is what is it? How many people like it? And then what format does it go to? How can I commercialize it? You can try to commercialize the art, but you're still going to have the art first.